Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another brand new DC News Roundup video, and we've got quite a bit to go through today. I know I say that a lot, but James Gunn, as you guys know, he likes to reply on threads, sometimes here and there, but recently he's gone through and teased a bunch of things, getting into DCU Batman, to various other things in the DCU that I absolutely have to talk about. So Future Boba here, just interjecting on the beginning here. The first 10 minutes of this video were about the DCU Batman Brave and the Bold, because a new report did come out today saying that Andy Muschietti and Rodo Seguez were going to co-write the Brave and the Bold script. And I got into a big talk about what I thought about that and how I thought this could impact the movie with their visions, their horror backgrounds. But just as I was about to post this, typically, somebody asked Gunn about it on Threads, which is funny because we go over a lot of thread updates in this video from Gunn, if it was true, and he said not true. So cutting that out of this video entirely. Obviously, we do go over some other DC Batman stuff and DCU news, but maybe a little bit of a shorter video because of that. But back to the main video. So we've got quite a bit to dive into. As always, timestamps are on the video if you want to skip around, but as I always say here, I recommend watching from beginning until end so you're up to date on all of my takes. Do consider liking the video. It really does actually go a long way to helping me out in the algorithm. And of course, if you want to stay up to date on anything DC Universe, the upcoming DCU, consider subscribing. Check that red button because you might not actually be subscribed, because my analytics tell me that many of you keep coming back, but a lot of you who keep coming back aren't subscribed to the channel. So maybe today is the day. So let's now dive into Gunn's thread responses. And honestly, we've got quite a few to go over here. So I've put the DCU Batman ones right at the beginning. We had this user saying, is this true? And it was just another outlet recycling that information about, hey, you know, the James Gunn could have found his DCU Batman already and cast him. And Gunn says, no, we haven't even begun casting for the DCU Batman. And in my previous video, I covered this, and I said, like, I don't think Batman is cast or anything like that. You know, you need to kind of wait until the script is complete. But what I did talk about is something that I don't necessarily think Gunn debunked here, and that is the idea that, yes, I agree, no, we haven't begun casting for DCU Batman, but does that mean that Gunn wouldn't have a top pick in his mind? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You don't have to begin casting to know that, hey, you know, I'm James Gunn, I've got a lot of Hollywood connections, I know a lot of actors, I know of a lot of actors, and in my mind, maybe I might speak to this person, that person, when we begin the casting process. Again, I go back to my comparison of when he watched House of the Dragon. He saw Millie Alcock, and he admits himself when he first saw her, he kind of wanted her for Supergirl. But she still had to audition amongst a couple of other candidates for Supergirl. So, I don't know, just a little bit of a tangent there. I feel like Gunn could still have a pick for Batman, but no, I never really believed in the first place that they were casting for DCU Batman right now. No, that doesn't really make sense. They don't even have a completed script, but I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if in Gunn's brain, if we could like worm our way in there, if he's got like, hey, I might approach this person when the time comes. Up next, we have our very own Brutal Vengeance ask Gunn saying, I know you said that before, that Bruce will be a couple of years older than Clark, but do you mean 2 years older, or do you mean a few years older? Now, I think this is like a relevant question to ask, because I see people talk about this all the time. You know, when people reply to other people, they cite that exact reply from Gunn, and they're like, right, he said a couple. So that literally means Batman in the DCU will be 2 years older. A couple means 2. Sure, people say a couple sometimes hyperbolically, and really they mean a few more years, so like 3 or 4. And that's why Brutal Vengeance asked this, because, you know, when Gunn says a couple, well, David Corenswet is in his early 30s. So does that mean Batman, if Gunn said a couple of years older, would be 33, 34? And I've always thought, I don't think so, because, you know, with Damian Wayne coming in, that's just a pretty young age for Bruce to be, even though I have said before that they can actually make that work through kind of adjusting the chronology of a bit of Batman canon when they adapt this version of Batman in the DCU. Now, Gunn replied saying, I'm pretty sure I didn't say that. What I said was Bruce could be. Like, so could be a couple of years older than Clark. All I meant was I wasn't tied to Bruce and Clark being the exact same age. So with this reply, I'm not going to try and make the same mistake of like clinging on to every word that Gunn is saying here. But when he does say, all I meant is that I wasn't tied to Bruce and Clark being the exact same age, I do feel that Gunn is going to cast a Batman who is a bit older than Clark Kent. Now, I've always said 36 to 38 is a decent compromise of, you know, just having an age of Batman in the DCU who's trained Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson is left to become Nightwing. During Dick Grayson's training, maybe Barbara Gordon came in as Batgirl, but after Dick Grayson left, he trained Jason, and Jason died, and then as the movie picks up, maybe, just maybe, that's when Damian Wayne comes in. Now, I know that leaves Tim up in the air and things like that, and some of you may be like, but Boba, Batman's meant to have trained this person, or Tim Drake should be in there before Damian. I know, like, I'm very aware of all of that, but as I always say, adaptations don't copy and paste exactly the canon of the source material. They could switch things around, they could decrease the time of training that each Robin had or Bat family member had to kind of also decrease the age of Batman in the DCU to be a bit more youthful, even though his son is still coming in the picture. And again, as many of you know, at the end of his training, before he returned to Gotham, he could have been in his early 20s, so like 22, 23, roundabouts there, had a fling with Talia al Ghul, time moves on, and 10 years to 12 years later, let's just say Damian is 10 to 12 in the DCU, Bruce would be in his mid-30s when his son arrives on his doorstep in the Batcave, which would line up to roughly the casting we are going to get in The Brave and the Bold, which, again, I can't say for sure, but again, I've always said 36 to 38. I know people who are like, why do people get so obsessed over age? And I don't blame people. I find it very interesting as well. We kind of want to know Batman's age, just, you know, roughly, like, because there is a difference between 36 to 38 and then like 45 to 46, right? Because it does give you an idea of maybe the chronology and the timeline of Batman before that, with his experience, his training of Robins, that they can fit in there. Because no matter what, if you make Bruce 34 to 35, sure, even if they condense things a little bit, they could still only fit so much in there if he returned to Gotham at 25 and became Batman around 26. So there is a relevancy as to why people wonder about this, myself included, to those who are just like, age doesn't even matter. Well, it does a little bit, you know? Now, Gunn, as I was making this video, posted 1 year ago today, David and Rachel screen tested for Clark and Lois. When they first read together, it was like magic. What a wonderful year it's been with two of the most extraordinary, vibrant, and meticulous actors I've ever had the opportunity to work with. I can't wait for you to see them on screen in just a little over a year. And that's just nice to read, because it's crazy as well. I remember making the videos of the front runner articles for those in the runnings for Superman and Lois, and here we are a year later, and Gunn's calling them two of the most extraordinary, vibrant, and meticulous actors he's ever had the opportunity to work with. I love these castings. I really do. They're exactly who I wanted out of all the front runners, and I do think that they are perfect for the roles. And just seeing James Gunn sing their praises here and, you know, be pretty descriptive with how great they are in terms of ever having the opportunity to work with out of all the actors is just music to my ears. He also posted in the past day, today is the anniversary of Kendra Saunders, and this is interesting because just in case you were wondering which Hawkgirl we're getting, it is seemingly Kendra. Her first appearance as Hawkgirl, while Kendra took flight in JSA Secret Files #1 in 1999 under writers James Robinson and David S. Goyer and artists Louis Small Jr. and Michael Baer. Hawkgirl first hit stands in 1940 as Shiara Saunders Hall in Flash Comics #1. So excited for Isabella Merced to don the wings in Superman. We have Isabella Merced saying, "Happy anniversary to my favorite bird lady, honored to don the wings and the sick helmet," of which she's teased a couple of times before, like she's tried on the helmet and everything, and I am dying to get costume reveals of the other heroes in Superman. I don't know if we're going to get it. Again, I keep saying every news video at the minute when we get extra glimpses of, you know, various Luthor crates and stunt training that we can actually see, and is that Mr. Terrific with his T-spheres in the background? You know, are we going to get the suit reveal for these other heroes any day now, because we might actually see them on set any minute? I keep thinking this could be happening, but still nothing. But now we need to dive into some other interesting tidbits from Gunn, talking about kind of the process of how he handles the shooting of Superman, and not just Superman, but his movies, through like music being on set. So we have this user saying, but what if the end result doesn't match the music? So when he's like editing it and playing the music on set, and also even if the music ends up in a different place. So you don't stumble upon a film. You manage and plan from the beginning, while still finding magic, unexpected moments along the way. Writing the music based on the script before you shoot is, to me, like using butter as the ingredient in a cake, as opposed to spreading it on top as an afterthought. And I love that analogy, I really do. I've done it for all of my movies except one. Shooting to the music we've written, both soundtrack and score, it always leads to a more organic final work. And this other user says, I'm just thinking, who puts butter on a cake? And Gunn says, most films. And that analogy really does work, because obviously when you're making a cake, you put the butter in before you start baking it and everything. And the way he's talking about that here is through using music developed and based on the script throughout shooting, and how that influences, well, the baking of the cake, and how butter goes into that early on in the process. Well, what does that do? It makes the cake as it should have been made in all the right steps that you take in order. But a lot of the films he's saying here often do that afterwards, and it is kind of the equivalent of only adding the butter at the end. And that often doesn't lead to as good of a product. And I do think that this is something that is true. Another example is Matt Reeves' The Batman. He also had rough scores and versions of the soundtrack from Michael Giacchino, and they played that on set as well. That's why we even had early versions of it with the camera test and whatnot. And that absolutely informs the vibe and what you want to go for when you're shooting a movie, as opposed to just doing all of that afterwards. And music is such a integral piece of projects like this. So this is what I mean. Like, no matter how much we talk about Gunn or the other little tidbits that he gives us, I do also subscribe to a lot of his ideology on filmmaking, but also other things that we're about to get into as well. And speaking of how I agree with a lot of what James Gunn's ideology is on not only filmmaking, but, well, I guess the current state of filmmaking across multiple different genres here. So we have this user saying, James, did you happen to see what Anthony Starr said regarding superhero fatigue? I did, and as usual, and unsurprisingly, I'm on board with Anthony. People want to see new and surprising stories that don't seem like a retread of what they've already seen, whether it's superheroes or giant monsters or cowboys. And it's so true. Think about, look, you can still be fans of these movies like Fast and Furious, or a lot of monster movies, or, you know, people often say superhero fatigue is like what happened to cowboy movies. Yes, those things are getting a bit of fatigue from audiences, or have in the past, and have kind of died off. You obviously don't get as many Western movies these days, but there was a similar boom once upon a time. But the thing is, and the fix and the treatment is to make things that aren't copy and paste in the same way, shape, and form. And that is what Gunn is going into his DCU with. Now, will he be successful? I don't know. Will he practice what he preaches? We're going to have to wait and see. But the fact that he's identified it, the fact that he knows, I'm not going to just make another blah, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then like this movie in a cinematic universe formula, but rather its own thing that provides its own intrigue and breaks that wheel. That is what it is. So superhero fatigue, there is fatigue with a certain approach.
People say superhero fatigue, but I think that, you know, you see now that it's not a real thing. People are fatigued with repetition. And I don't think it's really just superhero movies. I think you're seeing it happening now. It's spectacle films in general. And they aren't about characters, and there's no emotion to them. And there should be emotion in things no matter what. Like, that should always be there. Some type of emotion. I'm not saying it can't be really light. I'm not saying it can't be really heavy. I'm saying there should be some sort of emotion.
You're right, and that goes with...
And off the back of that as well, another example of why I think the DCU won't have that same fatigue type optics to it, is with this user saying here, for individual projects in the DCU, will it be required to watch other projects to understand others? I feel that one of the problems with comic book movies in the past have been the amount of watching required being overwhelming for casual viewers. For example, would I have to watch Superman and Lanterns to understand things in the Authority, or can stories be understood even if you haven't watched an earlier project? And Gunn has said this before, but he's saying it again now, no. Although they're connected and in the same universe, every project should work as an individual story in and of itself. Exactly, and I've seen a lot of people express concern about this, like this user said, with Lanterns being an example of what if you don't want to watch Creature Commandos, knowing that some Creature Commandos characters are now going to pop up in Superman and Waller. Well, this is just, this is going to put so many people off, but no, don't worry about it. I honestly feel like, yes, it will age your experience in a certain way if you watch these shows that can connect, but do you really think that they're not going to also cater to the person who's only just seeing Superman or only just seeing the Authority? Of course they will, and I don't think it's going to be an issue like some people are panicking about. And again, the fact that James Gunn is very, very, very self-aware about that is only a reassuring thing. Some other extra tidbits here. We have this user saying, hi James Gunn, I just wanted to say you're a really good director and I'm excited to see the new Superman movie next year. And he says, I'm excited for you to see it. Okay, back to editing now. And another user says, already editing Superman? You're still shooting though, right? And another user said, editing and effects can be done while the film is still in the shooting process. So he likely still has a lot of shooting and reshoots to do. But Gunn then says, I always edit while shooting, as we've been over before, as I am now. That way I don't have to do reshoots. And I do think this is a good way of doing it because, as he says, that way I don't have to do reshoots. So when you're editing it as you're shooting it, if there's something when you're in the kind of rough draft of editing and seeing what this could look like in the final product, you might be like, actually, this might not fit in this way, or I want to now kind of do this, so now let's go shoot that. And you don't have to come back afterwards to do reshoots because you're only just editing it at the end. That's just a lot more money into it, a lot more money wasted. Whereas if you're kind of editing along the way, granted it's not the final edit, but you're kind of seeing how it's shaping up to be, you can then interject in your own process and maybe expand on it and make it look even better if you want to add something else in there. And lastly here, a little bit of an update on the Batman Part 2, because a lot of people were wondering, where's the script at? Is it still being worked on, or maybe was it done? But like, we just haven't heard official confirmation of that yet. Well, Gunn has replied. So we have this user saying, is the script for the Batman Part 2 still being worked on? And Gunn said yes. Because there's a lot of speculation out there. Has it been cancelled and all that stuff, even though Gunn keeps denying it? It is still being written. Like right now, still being written. Exactly kind of what I thought anyway. But not only that, this other user said, when do you suspect the script to be finished? And the answer here is very interesting because Gunn says, when Matt thinks it's ready. And that's a fantastic answer, because do you know why? I found this other take on Twitter, which I thought was brilliant, given all of the kind of fear-mongering out there. So this user said, y'all hear that? When Matt Reeves feels when it's ready. Reeves' choice, not Gunn's. How's that for studio interference? And it's so true. So if there was all of this, James Gunn's got to interfere with the Batman and all this kind of stuff, and it's going to be cancelled, or if it's not cancelled, Gunn's got to like completely dissect what Matt Reeves wants it to be. No, if there was studio interference and all of this stuff, you could argue, just like some days of old, he might be rushing Matt Reeves to get it out there. Hey, yeah, don't perfect it, just put it out there. We need to start shooting this so you can just be done with the Batman Part 2 and we'll end it there or whatever. No, he's saying when it's ready. Like, he's not shoving him forward to do it. He's not pressuring him. And it's just nice to know that, like, Gunn's like, hey, Matt, you're still cooking there? Are you done? And Matt's like, nah, I'm still doing it. It's like, okay, that's fine. Keep doing your thing. When you're ready, come to me and we'll get this thing moving forward. And that is what it is. And I love that response because it just shows how, again, Gunn is just kind of being very supportive of the process, where a lot of studios, not just Warner Brothers in the past, but many studios do not do this. They really accelerate the script writing. Whether it's perfected or not, you have to deal with that. And the movie will suffer as a result. And Gunn has said many times before that we will not be making a movie until the script is done. And not only that, most importantly, when it is ready. When it's ready. But when do I suspect we could be hearing stuff about this? Well, I'm still hoping. I'm hoping that we'll hear news of it being done by the time the Penguin series is released. And once that hopefully is announced from Deadline or whoever, or maybe Matt Reeves himself or Gunn answering another question like this, that is when they can look into starting casting and doing the pre-production and everything like that. But ladies and gentlemen, that is everything I am going to blabber about today. There's been a lot of rambling and blabbering in this video, so feel free to blabber your own thoughts down in that comment section. But if you got this far in the video, I would really appreciate a like. As always, I really do mean that. It helps me out quite a lot. And consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, really appreciate your support. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the DCU in the next video. Goodbye.